Hi friends. Today I want to share a new story with you. I hope you enjoy it. I can still remember the sound of clinking glasses and fake laughter at that Thanksgiving dinner. The fancy chandelier in my parents' dining room lit up the faces of family members who hadn't bothered to visit my cafe in over 3 years, even though it was only a few blocks from their law office. "Emma," my sister Sophia said loudly, cutting into the small talk. "Tell everyone your big news." I looked up from my plate, already guessing what she was about to say. Sophia was wearing a stylish suit, and her diamond ring sparkled as she picked up her wine glass. She had that smug look on her face, the one she always wore before showing off. "I made senior partner," she announced proudly. "The youngest in the firm's history." Everyone cheered. My mom looked thrilled. My dad raised his glass. "To Sophia Harrison, keeping the family law firm strong." I quietly sipped my wine, thinking about the big contracts waiting on my desk at home. But no one here knew about that. To them, I was still the family failure who chose to run a little cafe instead of becoming a lawyer like the rest of them. "And what about you, Emma?" Aunt Patricia asked, with her usual mix of fake concern and judgment. "Still running that little coffee shop?" "It's called the Wild Vine Cafe," I said softly. "Yes, I still own it." Sophia chuckled and gave our cousin Diana a look. "You know, there's always a place for you at the firm if you ever want a real job." I poked at my mashed potatoes, thinking about the meeting I had that morning with a major real estate developer. The deal I signed was worth more than Sophia made in a whole year. But they didn't need to know that. "Not yet. The cafe's doing just fine," I said calmly. "Fine enough to pay the rent, I hope," Mom added, looking worried. "That downtown spot must cost a lot." I almost smiled. If only they knew, I own the whole building. And the one next to it. And most of that block. "I manage," I said. Sophia started bragging about her latest case, some big company deal worth millions. Our parents listened to every word, just like they always did when we were growing up. Sophia had followed the perfect path: top grades, law school, a big job at the family firm. And me? I was the one who chose a different road. I went to culinary school instead of law school. I used my trust fund to buy a struggling cafe instead of a fancy apartment. "I just closed the Anderson deal," Sophia said proudly. "You should have seen their lawyers panic when I found a mistake in their contract. Mr. Chun was so impressed, he's bringing all his business to us now." I stayed quiet. If only she knew who really owned most of Mr. Chun's properties. Later, in the kitchen, Mom cornered me while I helped clean up. "I just don't get it," she said. "You're so smart, Emma. You could have had everything Sophia has. Why throw it away on coffee?" I dried a wine glass and thought about my busy schedule tomorrow. "Not everyone wants to be a lawyer, Mom. But you could be so much more," she whispered. "Look at Sophia, fancy clothes, nice car, a beautiful penthouse. Don't you want that kind of life?" I thought about the penthouse I'd bought last month through one of my companies. It had a better view than Sophia's. "I'm happy with my life," I said simply. Mom sighed. "I just worry. Running a cafe is risky. What will you do when you want a family? How will you take care of them?" I almost laughed, thinking about all the investments and properties I secretly owned. The cafe had just been the beginning. My cafe's front door wasn't just for customers. It was my way into the downtown real estate world. Later that night, as everyone was grabbing their coats to leave, Sophia stopped me by the door. "Hey, I was serious about what I said earlier," she told me, using that bossy big sister voice she'd had since we were kids. "Dad could get you a job at the firm. You could start in corporate law and move up." "Thanks," I said, cutting her off. "But I'm happy where I am." She frowned, her eyebrows coming together. "Come on, Emma. You can't make coffee forever. Don't you want to do something important with your life?" If only she knew. I had already built something important, something way bigger than they could imagine. And tomorrow morning, they'd find out. "I've got to go," I said, looking at my watch. "Busy morning at the cafe." "Right," she said, smirking. "Those coffee beans won't grind themselves." I drove home, but not to an apartment. I went to my real office, hidden upstairs above the cafe. Everyone thought I just ran a little coffee shop, but that was only what I let them see. In reality, I'd been building a business empire. The cafe was just the cover. Behind it, I owned real estate, made smart investments, and signed contracts that would soon change the downtown skyline. I unlocked my office, sat down at my desk, and opened a file labeled Chun Acquisitions. Tomorrow, James Chun, the top real estate developer in the city, would meet me at the cafe. Not as Sophia's client, but as my business partner. He had been secretly helping me buy properties for years, using different companies to hide my name. Not even his own legal team, including Sophia, knew the truth. I picked up the final contract, the one that would bring all my properties together under one company. The one that would finally show who really owned a big part of the city. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. Dinner was fun. By the way, Mr. Chun said he might drop by your cafe tomorrow. Please don't embarrass me. He's our biggest client. I smiled and put the phone down. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The contract was simple. All my companies would join under one name, Harrison Capital Group. I chose the name as a little joke, using our family name in a way they'd never expect. As I read through the papers one last time, I thought about Sophia's proud smile, Mom's worries, and Dad brushing me off as just a coffee shop girl. While they focused on court cases and firm politics, I was buying up half the city. 5 years of hard work, careful planning, and keeping my name out of sight were about to pay off. Tomorrow, James Chun would sign the papers. And my family would finally realize that the daughter they thought was just a barista actually owned more of downtown than their law firm ever could. The morning after Thanksgiving, I got to the Wild Vine Café early. My manager, Kate, was already there, setting up like it was a normal day. The private room's ready, she said, handing me a coffee. But I still don't get why Mr. Chun wants to meet here instead of his fancy office. I smiled and took a sip. Sometimes the best business happens in unexpected places. At exactly 9 a.m., James Chun walked in. Even though he was super successful, he wore simple clothes, a black sweater, and slacks. That was one of the things I liked about him. No flash, just business. "Good morning, Miss Harrison," he said warmly. Then, in a louder voice, "Can I get a vanilla latte?" I smiled and walked behind the counter to make it myself. Time to play the part, one last time. James and I had our routine down perfectly. He'd walk in like a regular customer, and I'd serve his latte like a humble cafe owner. No one ever guessed we were making million-dollar deals over coffee. As I steamed the milk, the door chimed. I looked up, and there was Sophia, walking in with her fancy briefcase. "Mr. Chun?" she said, clearly surprised to see him. "You're here early." James took his latte from me and smiled. "Miss Harrison makes the best vanilla latte in town," he said. Then, turning to Sophia, he added, "Would you like to join our meeting?" Sophia looked confused. "Meeting?" "Yes," James said. "For the downtown development project." He motioned to the private room in the back. "Shall we?" I saw her trying to figure it out, why her top client was meeting in her sister's tiny cafe. But she followed us, heels clicking across the floor. The room looked simple, just a nice table and cozy chairs. But in the corner, a camera was set up, ready to record something big. "I'll need another witness," James said, holding up a thick contract. "Your sister could join us." Sophia shook her head. "Emma? No. She doesn't need to be involved. She just runs the cafe." James looked serious. "Actually, she's the most important person here." I sat at the head of the table and smiled. "Honestly, Sophia," I said, "you're the one who doesn't need to be here. But since you are, you might want to see this." The door opened again. Our father walked in, along with 2 senior partners from the law firm. They must have followed Sophia, thinking this was something small. "What's going on?" Dad asked. "Why is Mr. Chun meeting here?" Before Sophia could respond, James answered. "I invited everyone. It felt right to sign the papers in the place where this all started." "Sign what?" Sophia asked. I opened my laptop and clicked to the first slide. The final step in forming Harrison Capital Group, now valued at over $300 million. The room went silent. Dad's face turned pale as the screen showed a map of downtown. Dozens of buildings lit up, property after property that I owned. Harrison Capital Group, he said quietly. My company, I replied. You might recognize the names of some of the companies under it. Wild Vine Properties, Azure Development, Crown Point Investments. Sophia sat down fast, shocked. Wait, we've handled contracts for those. But those were Mr. Chen's investment firms. Not exactly, James said. They were Emma's. I just helped keep her name hidden. Dad looked stunned. But Emma's just a cafe owner. She couldn't. I pulled out a copy of the contract. The cafe was where it started. I bought this building 6 years ago. I saw potential downtown, empty spaces, underused buildings. I started buying, investing, growing. I looked right at him. While you laughed at my little coffee shop, I was building the biggest private real estate company in the city. Sophia grabbed the contract and flipped through it quickly. Her face changed from confused to amazed to speechless. This is worth hundreds of millions, she whispered. You own more than half of downtown. Actually, James added, it's a little more than half. Your sister has an incredible eye for opportunity. Dad sat down slowly, looking completely shaken. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked. You all thought I was wasting my life. It was easier to let you believe that, while I built something for myself. But you wear an apron, Sophia said, confused. You serve coffee. I wear a lot of things, I said. Sometimes an apron. Sometimes a suit. But I never needed anyone else to see the suit to know what I was capable of. James held out a pen. Shall we sign? I signed first. Then James signed. And just like that, Harrison Capital Group officially became the city's largest private real estate owner. Congratulations, James said, shaking my hand. Though I'll miss those early coffee meetings. I smiled. The cafe's still here. Though we might get a few new customers, especially lawyers with a sudden craving for lattes. That night, after the shock had worn off and my family had left, I sat alone in my office above the cafe. The city lights sparkled outside, my city in many ways. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. Can we talk? Over coffee? Maybe. I looked down at the cafe. It was still full of customers. Everyone thought I was just scraping by. But really, I'd been building an empire, one cup at a time. I replied, Sure. I know a great little place. The owner's doing pretty well these days. Sometimes, success doesn't look how people expect. Sometimes, it wears an apron. And sometimes the best way to win is to prove yourself right. I closed my laptop and went downstairs. Tomorrow, the news would break. Everyone would know the truth about Harrison Capital Group. But tonight, I had a cafe to run. Because some of the best business in the world still starts with coffee.